Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Red Cup Conversations at Black's Bar.
Yep.
You're here in the beautiful Bixby Knolls area of Long Beach at the historic
John Lee Hooker's house.
Yes, we always mention that because John Lee Hooker, the famous bluesman,
Oh yeah,
had this house.
many homes, but this was one of his stops.
Yeah. And I believe you said your neighbor was a doctor and took care of him.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. There's a neighbor down the street. He was a doctor, and he used to come and watch the baseball games with John Lee Hooker.
Okay.
And John Lee Hooker just said, "Hey, would you be my private
Concierge.
Yeah,
Concierge doctor.
Concierge medicine before concierge.
Before it was special.
Exactly.
Thanks to the blues have brought us rock and roll, country, everything,
everything?"
and concierge medicine.
Yes.
Okay. So there you go. I'm John, and this is
Aaron.
And Aaron's going to talk a little bit about our background, why we're doing this.
Well, during COVID, they closed all the bars down. So I decided to build one in my backyard. So John and I, we sit in the backyard watching them build my bar. We was drinking and eating, getting fat.
Yeah.
It was a lovely day during the pandemic.
It was bad. It was bad, and my doctor really questioned me what the heck you've been doing. I'm like, I've been stuck in my house eating bad food and drinking, and so this is much better than doing that bad shit.
So we just sit here and we start talking about Long Beach today because we know, Megan, you know, I love Long Beach. John loves it. He's been here as long as I have, actually. So we decided to say, John came up with the idea, hey, let's start interviewing people at the bar. We call it red cups because, everybody used the red cups for water.
It's always water.
Always water. And so we said, let's do this. So this is where we are now.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we're not professionals. We will stammer, we will stutter, we will misspeak.
Stutter.
Is there a warning label on the bottom?
Yes, it's stammer, stutter. I may lose a word. Hey, we're not professionals.
Nah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, this is all fun for us. So,
Right.
so today we have Megan Kerr. She's running for the 5th District Council of Long Beach. We're calling it the Big Fifth.
The Big Fifth now.
Big Fifth.
The Big Fifth.
So it's big.
I've been thinking about that.
Yeah, it's a big fifth.
It's huge.
We reorganized all the districts last year per the Constitution and all that stuff, and we got a giant, big, long district. So we have Megan here to talk to us and tell us a little bit about herself and why she's running.
And I'm welcome back because Megan's been to my house before. We've done a lot of little fundraisers here together and everything else. So welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So introduce yourself to the Bixby community.
Bixby community.
So I'm fortunate that I was born and raised in the Bixby community.
Wow.
So the first house I lived in actually was 45th Way, but spent most of my life over in Bixby Highlands on Boyer Avenue. And I attended local schools. I went to St. Barnabas. I was a Catholic school kid, so I went to St. Barnabas and St. Anthony High School. Went to Long Beach City College for a while, and then transferred to Cal Poly Pomona. Have a degree in sociology with a concentration in social work. I met my husband, that guy over there, while I was still in high school. So
The nicest man in America, you guys. The nicest man in America.
I concur. He's a great guy. And so we've been together ever since. So we've been dating, I think this year is 33 years, married 27 next month.
Woo! Congratulations.
Thank you.
You started dating when you were 5.
I know. There's a lot of gray hiding under here.
Congratulations on that kindergarten relationship that spawned after 33 years.
So we got married in 95, and our first apartment was on Carson.
Oh, okay.
So I've lived in this kind of ping pong radius of about a mile my whole life. He was born and raised in North Long Beach, over across from Grant Elementary School. There's a sign there that says "Don't play ball on the yard," probably because he broke a window playing baseball at Grant Elementary back in the day in North Long Beach. We lived got to buy our first house in the house that I grew up next door to. And spent our first couple of married years there and started our family. And then moved to our current house almost 16 years ago when flight death.
We got a Bixby pause coming up.
That's right.
That's a private plane. We'll be doing some
Small
approaches.
Practicing.
But,
Right.
That's the Bixby pause. We will stop for about 8 seconds in the jet
Exactly.
take
And
off.
if it's at night, it's between 7 and 7:45.
There's 7:35. There's a UPS
Yep.
right over the house.
I always knew that if I heard the 7:15 a.m. flight out of Long Beach Airport, that I was late getting up to go to school. And it was that panic of hearing the airplane go over and then getting to school on time. So we have 3 kids who are currently 25, 23, and 21. But about 16 years ago, we moved to our house across the way in Bixby Knolls proper, over there, as it's called, because my dad had a debilitating heart attack, which led to a permanent brain injury. And so he lived next door to us in our house over there. And my grandma, who was in her 90s, lived with him as well. And so for our family's sake, the best move was to get a bigger house so we could all be together so we could take care of him. So we became some of those early adopters of the sandwich generation.
Wow.
So we had my Nana, who I think was 91 at the time, my dad, who was only 62 at the time of his heart attack, and then our 3 kids who are 9, 7, and 5. And so we've been in that house since and cared for those folks. So my dad, until he was unable to work around the house and then needed to go into skilled nursing, and then my Nana until she passed at almost 101.
Wow.
Wow.
So that's my Bixby Knolls kind of Long Beach story, and then woke up, 3 months ago, 5 months ago, and found out that I was in District 5 for the first time. I've always been in District 8 or District 7, depending on where I live.
Oh, yeah.
And so here we are. I have worked in the community and volunteered. I was elected to the school board in 2014 for Long Beach Unified. I'm on the board for 2 local nonprofits, Rancho Los Cerritos, as well as CCEJ, which is the California Conference for Equality and Justice. And just have been doing this work for a long time and looking forward to serving.
All right. Well, we have a couple questions on some issues that we always hear the same issues. We talk to folks, and there's a few things that pop up, and I ask everyone that we talk to the same questions. First, addressing the homeless problem I guess we have. There's a lot of folks out there that have mental illness, substance abuse. They're just giving up. And how can Long Beach handle and give these people the help they need to move on and get to where they should be?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Part of the service that I've done in the community over the years, so one of the first big projects I did was I was a kid who went to school in downtown Long Beach who saw that we had a large homeless population that lived in Lincoln Park at the time. And so I went to an event where they were feeding the homeless in Santa Monica, and I turned to my dad and said, why don't people do this here in Long Beach? And he looked at me and he said, I don't know, why don't you? And he turned it on its head, which has always been how my family raised me, which is it's always about service and what can we do to help. So that was the first thing I did. I was 18. We started out of St. Barnabas. We literally set up camp stoves in Lincoln Park in the shadow of the old City Hall 2 Saturdays a month and cooked a hot meal for 8 years. And that was what I thought at 18 would make a difference. So now, obviously, lots of experience later, knowing that while that helps an acute problem in the moment, it doesn't fix the policy issue that is in front of us. So all that to say that my family has kind of dedicated our nonprofit work and our service work around housing and homelessness for decades. My husband and my dad actually helped start a nonprofit in Hollywood called Housing Works, which provides the supportive services for the chronically homeless. So once we get folks housed, how do we keep them housed? So we know in Long Beach it's acute and it's a long-term policy thing. So the acute of those folks who are sleeping on the streets in our parks along the riverbeds and meeting their basic needs where they are, as well as the policy implications from the last 50, 60 years have created this, whether it's zoning issues, whether it's discriminatory housing policies of where folks can live. We're in this place of a huge problem that was a long time in coming. So I think the answer to that is just as complicated as how we got here.
Yeah.
But there are ways that we can do those things. So if we're looking at that acute issue of how do we get folks who have needs and issues on the street into housing, we have to make sure that there's housing for them to go to. So on a temporary basis, that's creating shelter space that makes it really easy for them to get in there, which means they can bring their pets or they have a place to store their stuff. We don't have, they're called low barrier shelters, and so we don't have a lot of those, but making sure that the spaces that we're asking people to utilize meet their needs. We know nothing's perfect, but we know that asking someone to leave their pet is like asking someone to leave their family members. You got your pups, I got 4 pups and a foster pup at home.
He got 3 people.
I got 3 people out. You can't leave them. They're part of your family.
So meeting the needs in a way that addresses the folks who are there is really important. And then once we get people in housing, whether it's temporary or longer term before permanent, is giving them the services and the support they need to stay there. And it's not just, here's your room. It's how do we make sure you have the documentation to get the benefits that you're entitled to, or that you can apply for a job, or that you can even get mail because you have an address. So we have work that we can do around, and we do great work out of the multi-service center, but there's really proven approaches, but it's really labor-intensive work and kind of compassion-intensive work. And so for me, it's important that as we look for solutions, that we're doing in a way that is respectful of people and compassionate of the need, while also helping to address the problems. And then on the policy end, the same way, is making sure that we are targeting and building affordable housing and, designated housing potentially for LGBTQ folks, for seniors, for veterans, because we know that those populations are more impacted and they end up homeless more often. So I look forward to jumping into the work. We've done it kind of as our heart work and our side work, but working with the city and the staff to continue to do better.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, crime. Big one, I guess, is the catalytic converters, smash and grabs,
the nuisance crimes that you were seeing, taking your packages.
Yeah. Right. So, what's your thoughts? What do you think?
We are down a catalytic converter in our own home.
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I think. We have an alley, and so when we park the truck there, that happens. So we know that that's important. I know the council's taken some steps already around how can they manage if you can't buy catalytic converters that's not attached to a car.
Right.
There's programs that I think I saw that.
To me, that's logical, right? Like, hey, where'd you get this from, guy?
Right. Same thing with batteries, because I heard that you can exchange batteries at auto parts stores. I'm like, because we had a rash at one point of folks having their batteries stolen. So understanding that obviously people are trying to meet a need with that. But it's certainly not comfortable when you come out in the morning and you realize that your car's been tossed or the console's been gone through. And it happens all over.
It happened to me like 3 times in the front all the time.
Yeah.
My wife leaves her car parked, unlocked. We go out, been rifled through.
Yeah.
And I must not have very good sunglasses because they never take my sunglasses. So it's happened a couple of times.
And we got a lot of glare off the pool. Yeah, I've had stuff taken off my porch. We had ordered some food, some fresh vegetables and some chicken, and somebody took it. I'm like, I hope they had a really good meal.
But did you find it at the park? Was that north of your house?
The pieces of the chicken was raw, so I didn't eat it. Hey, but had a good meal.
Coyotes coming out.
Yeah, Wiley's everywhere.
So obviously serious, and obviously needing to make sure that our police department is appropriately staffed. We know that departments across the city and all cities are struggling with staffing shortages, and PD is also in that frame. And knowing that folks are ready to retire, we have a similar situation with teachers. It's got lots of folks in that age range where they're eyeing retirement, and what does that mean for having a qualified force? And so making sure that we're keeping up with academies that address those needs, because if we don't have the staffing, and then we run into overtime issues to make up for the staffing, and it becomes this cycle. So working to really appropriately train and maintain our police force so that they can help with that. But I think part of one of the issues around the pandemic, you said we all kind of holed up in our house because we had to.
Right.
And our communities in Bixby Knolls, and I know communities throughout the 5th District, they are neighborhood people. They are block party people. They're wine on pine. My brother lives over on Hackett, and they're constantly having block parties. That idea of coming back together to have some collective responsibility for each other, I think is going to be really important, because we stopped. I mean, I know for us, we hold up in our house, and my husband has respiratory issues in his family, and that made it really hard to want to engage with anybody but us during the pandemic. So as we come back out and checking in on neighbors, and hey, I haven't seen this neighbor in a week or so, have you? Really getting back to that place where we're looking out for each other is part of the recovery. It's more than just an economic recovery or health recovery. It is, how are we coming back to community? And D5 especially, how do we come back to being a district that doesn't almost even know each other?
Right.
So as we get back into that work of being community together, I think can help with that kind of neighborhood watch. How are we keeping track of what's going on so that we can keep PD informed as to what's happening in our neighborhood? So it isn't just a one-off call here. It's how do you sit down and talk to a neighborhood to say, how do we address this together?
Let's see our next question here, and this is one we ask everyone, and it's really, what are we going to do with the Queen Mary?
The Queen lives in Long Beach.
And your reaction is what we get from everyone we ask the question.
The glaze over everybody's.
And I say this all the time, the sins of our fathers, 50-something years ago, is a great idea. Let's get a Queen Mary, historic thing. They had troops on it, all this other stuff. Just put it and make it a part of Long Beach. Great idea. And then something happened. Not an easy answer.
Yeah. Another one, like everything's complicated. I know that always sounds sort of like a cop-out, but
No, it is.
how we get to a problem has an equally complicated solution to get out of it.
right.
So I have a story first about the Queen Mary. So my brother used to work on the Queen Mary. So he started working on the Queen Mary, I want to say when he was 16 years old, and he's also a D5 resident. And he started as a regular, I think Disney owned it at the time, just a regular person working on the ship, but he has such a deep revere and love for the ship's history. He adores her, and I call it a boat sometimes just to watch him react. It's a ship. So it is a ship.
The Queen's ship.
The
Yes.
Queen.
And he just loved it, and he loved the history. And he ended up working really closely with the folks who were doing tours and ship's officers. And he helped to write the tour of the World War II history of the ship
Oh, wow.
when it was the Gray Ghost.
Wow.
So sometimes I know a little more about those because he loved it. It was one of his passions, and he became a ship's officer. And his friend Shay, who I think was only a couple of years older, so maybe they were their late teens, were the youngest ever ship's officers because they had such respect and revere for her and for her history. He actually just saw that friend for the first time in about 15 years, a few weeks ago. So I love the Queen for that reason.
Okay, let's be wrong. That's a fighter?
No, it could be.
One of those old gunners?
I think that should be a new game at the bar.
Guess the plane.
Identify the plane.
There
Yeah, right, that's a good
are
idea,
folks out there that are plane
Right.
spotters.
Oh yeah.
And it's a big thing, getting serial numbers down, making sure, and I don't have that discipline, but hats off to those that can do it.
Right.
You look at a plane, oh, that's
Or maybe it earns you extra drink at the bar.
extra. Get your card stamped.
Yes.
There you go. You get 10
Punch card.
Punch card. You get 10 unique planes from different airlines, and you get a free drink. There you go.
Write it down.
Something for First Fridays.
So to finish about the Queen Mary, so I know that it's deeply personal for folks in this town, but we also know that resources are finite in cities, and making sure that we are doing right by the Queen while not jeopardizing necessary services for the residents is going to be that's going to be the question of the hour, how we move forward. So I know that now that it is docked with the Harbor Commission, we'll get a lot more information probably to work on how we move forward about her.
Yeah, we're not even going to bring up the Russian submarine that's next to it, but is it still there? I have no idea.
It's still there.
It's still there. I walked by not too long ago.
I did a tour of it, and I was like, oh my god, this thing's crowded. Couldn't do it. Yeah, that's another one. So
Yes.
we got a lot of history over there to deal with.
Yeah, I know. How about the last one? Last serious one. Your core issues.
My core issues.
Yeah.
So I think I've talked a lot about it.
Yeah.
It is kind of a multifaceted pandemic relief, which includes making sure our businesses are recovering, making sure our community is healthy, so that we can move forward. But it's also bringing back to community, and really in this 5th district, identifying who are we in this new, what's the 5th? What did you say?
The big fifth.
The big 5th. Okay, so we'll put that on the suggestion list.
We got a big speed
Oh, bigger
pause
one.
coming, and it's
Southwest.
Southwest. It's a Southwest. Hopefully it's going someplace fun. Vegas, maybe.
Maybe Vegas.
Phoenix.
Isn't everybody coming here for the Grand Prix though? It's surprising to see folks actually.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe they're the people that rented out their places now.
Yeah.
Could be. So it's that idea that we have work to do with the economy, we have work to do with housing and homelessness, and keeping our community safe, but we have work to do in terms of who we are as a community moving forward. How do we identify in this long rectangle of a district that spans our incredible Long Beach Airport complex, which has an incredible municipal division, and also our private business operators over there who are doing some amazing work. Some of the biggest aviation companies in the world are housed at Long Beach Airport. I didn't always know that, and I don't know that everybody else does, but really understanding what an asset that is. We talk a lot about the port as an asset to the city.
The airport is just as...
And absolutely the airport is equal. So how do we, so this is where I put on my school board hat sometimes of, the Port has a great internship program, and so how do we model something like that so that our students in the district and our students in the city understand the amazing opportunities for careers out of Long Beach Airport that aren't just flying planes or selling tickets, but those private business operators who are doing incredible work to support those new cool industries at Space Beach.
Yeah.
So Virgin Orbit and rocket launch and all of those things. There's great opportunity in there for us as a community and especially as District 5 to really support and uplift that work.
Yeah. Keep kind of get our young people in there and get them, like you said, internships.
Yeah.
I know your son did something with junior street engineer.
No, there was a city planning.
City planning.
Over at it's behind Poly. My son's into street planning and stuff, and it was a free.
That's right, they did that workshop
Yes.
a couple months ago.
Exactly. And my son took part in that. And he enjoyed it a lot.
Maybe they have a junior airport commissioner.
There's actually a nonprofit that operates out of one of the businesses over there, and they take kids, and I don't know a ton about it yet,
Okay.
but I'll get there because I learned a lot on days that I've gone over there to talk with folks that bring kids in for their first airplane ride. And they put them on those smaller airplanes, and they get to go up and do a loop and learn about aviation. I'm like, well, how do all the kids? And since I'm still on the school board and I represent this area as well as all of North Long Beach, I'm like, well, how do our North Long Beach students have access to that? But asking the question of here's these two young men working on a private jet, I'm like, how do kids get those jobs?
Right.
So really partnering with the school district, I think that's something that I bring to this work of the experience of the school district to say, we want our kids, I want my kids, I'll speak for myself, to be able to live here and work here if they want to.
Right.
But I want them to keep our talent and our brain trust of the kids in our system because they're amazing in Long Beach. That's making sure they have a place to live, that it's affordable for them to live here.
Right.
But they also, that we're creating great jobs for them to have in industries they never dreamed of.
Yeah.
So I love being able to imagine all of that moving forward of how do we continue to partner with our great school district to enhance especially the businesses that are in the fifth, to support and uplift the kids who didn't know that they wanted to work in private aviation and all of a sudden figured it out because we took them on a tour.
New aeronautical engineers coming up.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so we got 3 fun questions for you. And
It's not fun for us because we battle on this.
Yeah,
We have this red cup conversation.
these are things to the hills to die on.
Yes, right.
So are there wrong answers? Well, probably according to each of you, there is a wrong.
There's never a wrong answer. There's always an answer.
There is an answer. Okay.
There's an answer.
First one: Star Trek versus Star Wars.
I'm gonna have to go Star Wars.
I am winning, boy. He's a Trekkie. I mean, he's older than I am, so.
And I have watched some of all of the series, including some of the newer series. I haven't seen any of Picard yet.
Very good.
But I have seen some of it was Discovery.
Yeah.
I think I saw. So it's not a full season. But if someone asked me trivia, I would do much better at Star Wars trivia.
Yeah, we have the debate, and I've mentioned it in other videos. Like, Star Wars is more fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, and Star Trek is science fiction.
Go to this old.
I have this whole thing, in my garage. I have things and pictures and tape and wire and everything. It's strange. Figuring out this character. No, I don't know about that. So.
As far as we know.
as far as we know.
Favorite 80s band?
Oh, favorite 80s band. I did write a fan letter to David Bowie.
Let's
Probably
dance.
as a 7th or 8th grader.
Yeah.
So
You wrote a letter?
I did, because in those fan magazines and those teen magazines, it would give you like a record company
Right,
address.
right.
You know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, this P.O. box, like whether it ever got there, but I was definitely in the Duran Duran, David Bowie kind of era.
So you get that Tiger beat with the Duran on it and put the posters in your room?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, my sister was the same way, so.
Along the top.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those 80s were challenging times for us in
And
music.
stickers in our notebooks.
The last question, Mr. Blackburn.
Yeah, we asked this of all our guests. What's in the red cup?
It's ice water.
It's always water. All right. Well, thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for chatting with
If
us.
you want to give your last hoorah to the people out there.
Sure. Hi, new District 5. It's good to be with those of you who are always District 5 and my 7th District and 8th District folks who have now joined us. I would be honored to continue to serve our community as your city council member. I have loved and poured my heart into working in the Board of Education for the last 8 years, and I know we have incredible work to do in the city, and I would hope that you would trust my experienced and very compassionate leadership to be the person to do that moving forward, and would love your vote when you get your ballot in the mail in May. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you. And as always, we want to just encourage everyone
vote.
to
Everybody.
vote.
Yes.
Your votes really do matter, especially in local elections.
Yes.
5th District has some of the highest voting
Yeah.
in the city.
Yes.
Those numbers are fantastic and,
Yeah.
and really, really important. And so the 5th District voice matters to people, and it matters to the future of the city. So yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Vote.
Thanks,
Well,
everybody.
everybody. Take care and be nice to each other. And I didn't stammer as much as I normally
No.
did.
Peace.
Bye bye.